Heraclon Publishing presents Red Coat Diaries, True Stories from the Women of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Edited by Aaron Sheedy, Veronica Fox, and Regina Marini. Read for you by Sachi Lovatt. In memory of Constable Della Bayek, Special Constable Nancy Putkameri, Constable Christine Diot, Constable Robin Cameron, Constable Chelsea Robinson, Constable Sarah Beckett. Your legacy and spirit lives on in the pages of this book. Dedicated to the women of Troop 17, whose courage and strength helped shape the force as we know it today. And to every member of the RCMP who supported diversity in all its varied kinds in the workplace. Disclaimer. The stories contained in this book are true to life anecdotes. Events, locales, and conversations have been recreated from the memories of the individual story contributors. In each story, the names of vulnerable persons have either been changed or omitted in order to maintain their anonymity and protect their privacy. In certain stories, some identifying characteristics, such as physical descriptions and places of residence, have also been changed or omitted. Any opinions or beliefs, either implied or expressed, are those of the individual contributor. Forward. You've come a long way, baby. This phrase, which some might consider to be politically incorrect, describes exactly how I feel when I think about my more than 40-year-long journey as one of the first female police officers in the RCMP. This recent addition to the Red Coat Diaries series recognizes, celebrates, and preserves some of the previously untold adventures and experiences of female members of the RCMP. Fellow members of Troop 17, this book is dedicated to us. As I write this, we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of women serving as police officers in the RCMP. Back in 1974, who would have imagined that 32 young women from across Canada would later be called trailblazers or leaders? We just wanted to be called Mounties. I recall the day I applied to the RCMP, May 23, 1974. While driving through Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, I heard a radio news broadcast reporting that the RCMP had just started accepting women as regular members of the force. I happened to be driving past the local RCMP detachment, and it felt like destiny was calling. I pulled into the detachment parking lot that morning and went inside to get an application. I was greeted at the front counter by a young constable, who asked me how he could help. When I told him that I wanted to apply to become a police officer, he gave me a puzzled look and advised me that the force did not accept women. Just then, another member entered the lobby through the back door. From the look on his face, it was obvious he'd heard the same news broadcast that I had. It seemed to me as if he knew that life in Canada, and maybe on this planet, as we all knew it, was about to change. If that was indeed what he was thinking, history has clearly demonstrated that he was right. That morning I got my application to become a regular member of the RCMP, and the rest, as they say, is history. I have loved every minute of my career and the friends and adventures that came with it. Well, maybe not the 3 a.m. call-outs, but most of it. And although I have never looked back, I have paused to reflect on my origins. The story does not start with Troop 17. Women in Canada had been pushing the boundaries for some time. It was well into the 20th century before women were declared persons under the law and earned their right to vote. On a more personal level, my mother was one of many young women who joined the Canadian Armed Forces during World War II to help keep our country free, only to be told at the end of the war that her services were no longer required. My peers and I each had different influences in our lives that made the choice to join the RCMP seem like the right thing to do, or at least raise the question, why not be a Mountie? Although female police officers were not officially accepted into the RCMP until 1974, there were a number of female civilian employees who had previously served in traditional policing roles within the force, including acting in undercover operations and guarding females lodged in cells. There was also a long tradition of the wives of regular members performing various police-related duties alongside their operational husbands. These women were essentially the unpaid second man in many remote postings and have been recognized only recently for their contribution to the RCMP's establishment across Canada. Today's women serving in all areas in the force continue to embrace gender-related challenges with courage and class. I have said in the past, and continue to believe, that every employee of the RCMP has the potential to write a bestseller about the danger, sacrifice, heroism, and adventure that comes with the job. The stories contained in this book, whether they are told with drama, humor, or a little of both, are a testament to the dedication, courage, and sacrifice of our members. I am so proud of each of my troopmates and those who have followed in our footsteps, some creating their own unique pathways. My own daughter now proudly serves among this next generation of women Mounties. It has truly been a privilege to have been one of the first female police officers in the RCMP. I am also eternally grateful and incredibly proud to have had the opportunity to be a part of an organization made up of brave men and women who continue to serve our communities with honor and distinction. Commissioner Bev Busson, retired. Acknowledgements. I am a feminist, at least when it comes to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP. Change is afoot for the Mounties, and as we evolve into the modern world, I'm convinced that Canadians and RCMP employees alike will be best served by continuing to actively increase the number of women being hired and women being promoted within our ranks. I want to see big changes in my RCMP, and the easiest, most cost-effective, legal, and dramatic change we can make is to embrace diversity and raise up underheard voices. If this scares anyone, if anyone believes that women aren't up for the job, you're holding proof to the contrary. Through these 40 stories, everyone will see that women in the RCMP are brave, creative, natural trailblazers, and most importantly, they approach policing differently. In the story from this book, No Prince Charming, Inspector Ruth Roy summed it up the best. Quote, "That summer I learned that I could never approach my work like one of the guys. I had to do police work my own way, a female way." End quote. I want to see what happens when the female way becomes mainstream. In the way of gratitude, I would like to personally thank everyone who contributed writing to our little project. We'd be nowhere without you. Thank you so much. We are honored to share your work. As you might imagine, there is a lot of work involved in a publication like this by many people. Our workhorse-in-chief was Veronica Fox. She signed on shortly after the first Coat Diaries, and we started collecting stories for this book. Through thick and thin, she was there as my partner in crime and my sounding board. She contributed stories, she recruited writers, and did the lion's share of the content editing. V, simply thank you. You got us to here. Why be good when you can be great? Regina Marini has one of the strongest personal networks that I have ever seen, and when she signed on to Coat Diaries, doors opened for us. Her ability to end-run any number of problems, to recruit contributors, and get us places we couldn't go ourselves has been invaluable. The stories in this book are great, Reg, thank you for helping us tell the world. Coat Diaries enjoys a unique relationship with RCMP management. Time and time again, we get support from within, including from strategic partnerships and Heritage Branch, and especially Spiro Hadjis, who reviewed this book for security issues. We get support from corporate communications and local, provincial, and national RCMP media units. I am grateful also for the support from my coworkers and supervisors. Overall, the response is encouraging and a testament to the true esprit de corps that exists within the RCMP. On the home front, I would like to thank the women I live with, my soon-to-be wife, Carla Cormack, and my stepdaughter, Grace Manning. You are strong women and inspiration for the work I did on this book. I love you both. I'd like to thank Howard Astor, Matthew Goody, and everyone at Mosaic Press for their fearless support for the Coat Diaries series over the years. I would also like to recognize my friend Paul Shaughnessy for his professional insights and continued support. Last and certainly not least, my parents and siblings. From them I have gleaned the right mix of creativity and hard work. Thank you. Constable Aaron Sheedy, Toronto, Ontario. When I was around 3 years old, Mum introduced me to my first real book. Of course, I'd had my share of baby picture books, but this one, she told me, was different. It had lots of words. I eagerly flipped through, but with each turn of the page, my anxiety mounted. What were all these symbols? I didn't understand any of it. Why wasn't this working? Mum noticed my mood and asked what was wrong. I can't read, I cried. Oh, Veronica, she said, things don't happen that way. It takes time. All those years ago, I'd never imagined writing acknowledgments for a book. What a difference a few decades can make. Many people have contributed to my personal and professional growth over the years. Starting from my days at Depot, the RCMP's training academy, I've been blessed to work for a number of forward-thinking managers, supervisors, and mentors. Thank you all for encouraging my passion for the job, trusting me to lead, and extending to me some amazing opportunities that have led me to where I am today. To my troopmates, watchmates, colleagues, partners, and peers, the past 10 years have flown. Thank you for being there during the often exciting, frequently fun, but sometimes quite difficult times. My close civilian friends also receive many thanks for being there through thick and thin. Thanks for embracing and celebrating my role as cop while keeping me grounded in the world outside of policing. Writing is a deeply personal thing. To each contributor with whom I worked, I say a heartfelt thank you for trusting me to touch your stories. Thanks as well to my co-editors, Aaron and Regina, and the people at Mosaic Press, who've all contributed to bring this book and its stories to life. To the women of Troop 17, your courage, resolve, and resilience was a game changer and has impacted me greatly. I thank and salute you. My character is built, in part, on the generational grounding of my extended family. Both sides overcame many challenges so that my parents could be born in Canada, and I, in turn, could become a Mountie. Thank you for your legacy. And thanks to my relatives remaining today who help carry that legacy forward. From my father, I learned the value of hard work and commitment. I hear your words of wisdom daily. Never lower your standards. Thanks, Dad. My mother taught me the power of conviction and instilled in me a strong sense of social justice. I rely on these values every day. Thanks, Mum. And to Joshua, my dear brother, your strength of character taught me to never give up no matter what challenges lie in the path. I miss you dearly and will never forget your smile. Until we meet again. Corporal Veronica S.E. Fox, Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. Over the last few years of my 33-year career, I've had the great pleasure and honor of being involved in a number of great initiatives promoting women and diversity within the RCMP. From my involvement with the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement Organization, teaching diversity at Georgian College, or participation internally on many RCMP committees, the question consistently received from the general public was, what is it really like to be a woman in the RCMP? Joining forces with Aaron Sheedy and Veronica Fox, we embarked on a literary journey to seek out the stories from across Canada from female RCMP employees. Who better to hear from than the ladies themselves about how they proactively overcame challenges, changed popular or traditional beliefs, garnered respect from their colleagues, and ultimately changed the face of policing. It was our great honor to bring a voice to the women of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. No great journey happens without the support of those around us. First and foremost, I want to thank the contributors, as without their contributions, this book would not have been possible. Their fearlessness demonstrates the right stuff, and together their voices celebrate the indomitable spirit that defines what it truly means to be a woman in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. To the courageous women of Troop 17, who demonstrated fortitude and courage nowhere near ordinary, and blazed a trail for the ladies that followed, we salute you. To the visionary leadership within the RCMP, Peel Regional Police Service, Ottawa Police Service, and Ontario Provincial Police, who have supported and/or endorsed the publication of this book. Sincere thanks go to retired RCMP Commissioner Bev Busson, RCMP Deputy Commissioners Marianne Ryan and Peter Henschel, RCMP Chief Superintendent Jennifer Strawn, RCMP Director General Shirley Coulierier, retired Ontario Provincial Police Commissioner Gwen Boniface, RCMP Chief Superintendent Marlene Snowman, Ottawa Police Service Acting Chief Jill Skinner, Peel Regional Police Service Chief Jennifer Evans, retired RCMP Inspector Elder Jim Potts, and RCMP Superintendents Shaheen Mesdizadeh and Robert Davis. Last, but certainly not least, RCMP Manager Diversity and Employment Equity, Miss Janet Henstock. To our publisher, Mosaic Press, thank you for your vision and expertise to make this book a reality. To all those at my first detachment in Falcon Lake, Manitoba, who welcomed a young recruit and accepted, supported, guided, extended friendship, and enriched my early career and life in so many positive ways. Special thanks go to Larry, Ernie, John, Jim, Rick, Serge, Erica, Evelyn, Sue, Dawn, Doug, Wendy, Judy, Shirley, and Bob. You will never be forgotten. To my mother, I thank for passing on her indomitable spirit. To my father, I thank for his military discipline and stubbornness that prepared and equipped me to meet the challenges of a career nowhere near ordinary. To my sister, I thank for her ongoing love, strength, and loving family. To my very large RCMP family, and you know who you are, that through my long career supported extended friendship, demonstrated forward thinking, were non-judgmental, were open to change, walked the talk, were flexible, provided mentorship, guidance, opportunities, recognition, acceptance. Please accept my sincere thanks. Like many families, it is the ones who did the complete opposite that I must especially thank, for it tested and expanded my resolve, strengthened the content of my character, expanded my compassion and empathy for others, especially those in need, and inspired the development of leadership traits so critical to policing. To them, I am truly indebted. As I near the end of my career, I salute my RCMP family and pass the torch. Your sacrifices, commitment, and courage in the face of life-threatening perils will forever be etched on my soul with the utmost pride. And to the 5 women who exemplified that spirit and gave the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives in the line of duty: Constable Della Bayak, Special Constable Nancy Putkamary, Constable Christine Diot, Constable Robin Cameron, Constable Chelsea Robinson. Your legacy and spirit lives on in the pages of this book. Last, but certainly not least, heartfelt thanks to my forward-thinking husband, Daniel, and 2 sons, Connor and Brandon, who listened, understood my commitment, inspired, loved unconditionally, and encouraged me on those good days and bad days, and will forever remain champions of my heart. To my RCMP sisters and brothers, I salute you and part with Mahatma Gandhi's inspirational message, quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." End quote. Sergeant Regina Marini, Toronto, Ontario. Part 1. Breaking Ground. Bathtubs and Batons. Constable Connie Pinegar, née Smith. Retired. The members of Troop 17, the first troop of women in the RCMP, received the theory portion of riot training only. We did not get any hands-on instruction. We were told that women did not have the size to be an effective presence on a riot squad and would therefore never be asked to participate in this duty. When I graduated from Depot, I went off to my first posting in Nanaimo, British Columbia, which is centrally located on Vancouver Island. Nanaimo is the host community for the annual World Championship bathtub race. The race was originally a 36-mile course from Nanaimo to Vancouver's English Bay across the Strait of Georgia. While the course has changed over the years, the concept has remained the same. Each participant races in a fiberglass bathtub mounted on a high-speed boat hull, powered by a single 8-horsepower engine. Prizes are simple trophies and bragging rights. Each July, people from all over the world descend on the city to take part in the festival and race. That's why Nanaimo claims the title as the bathtub racing capital of the world. But my first summer in Nanaimo, the city got another name: home of the 1975 Bathtub Weekend Riot. One evening during the weekend festivities, a number of other members and I were on foot patrol in Nanaimo's downtown core. Things were heating up with the usual revelers and partygoers, but as the evening progressed, the celebratory mood began to change. Suddenly, someone smashed a liquor store window, and a group began ransacking the store. A dangerous mob mentality began to spread through the crowd. Those of us assigned to foot patrol in the downtown core were called back to the office. 6 of us managed to squeeze into a patrol car near the Bastion, a local landmark on the Nanaimo waterfront. Just as we closed the doors, the crowd, now in a frenzy, swarmed over our vehicle, smashing and rocking it. We were fortunate that our driver was able to ease us out of the rioting mass of people. Back at the detachment, they were handing out riot gear. Sergeant Al Grizzly Rivers stood in front of me, holding an armful of equipment, and growled, "Well, do you want it?" Obviously, he had not talked to anyone at Depot, but I like to think that I had proven my worth as a police officer. As is my nature, there was no hesitation. I grabbed the gear and tried to hide a smile as I turned away, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The riot line set up across the main street in the downtown core. As I held my position in the line, I mentally prepared myself by recalling the theory I had learned at Depot. Do not interact with the crowd. Do not react until told. Stand your ground. Everything was going well until a man in the crowd recognized who I was, despite my being hidden behind a helmet and shield. I was Nanaimo's first and only female member of the RCMP at that time. He got right in my face, creating a scene and causing further disruption. I thought, my presence is causing a problem. I need to take care of this. I placed my hands on either end of my baton and held it horizontally at chest level. I slowly straightened my arms, touching the baton to his chest, and in a low voice calmly said, "Stay back." He took a step back, and I had no further trouble with him. But that was by no means the end of the riot. By the following morning, our cell block was full to overflowing, and we had prisoners lined up on the street outside waiting to be processed. A few days later, my father, a commercial fisherman, delivered a load of salmon to Port Alberni, a town on the west coast of Vancouver Island, about 85 kilometers northwest of Nanaimo. As he walked up the dock, he overheard a group of fishermen on the deck of their boat, discussing their weekend plans. There was talk of going into Nanaimo to party and spend some hard-earned cash. "If you're planning to party in Nanaimo, watch out for that female cop," warned one fisherman. My father just smiled and carried on. I later learned that the story going around about the incident with the man on the riot line had taken on a life of its own. Apparently, I'd driven my baton into his gut, laying him out cold on the street. I had developed quite a reputation. I have to say it served me well. I never again had any real trouble on the streets of Nanaimo. I was only met with respect. A Mounties Italian Connection. Sergeant Regina Marini. One spring morning in 1997, I arrived to work at the RCMP's Toronto-based Proceeds of Crime unit to find I was now in charge of a high-profile and complex international drug importation case. Two of the lead crime investigators on the project had suddenly retired, leaving me as the only investigator on the team with enough requisite knowledge to continue the investigation. My boss assigned me to be the lead investigator. It was the most daunting and yet exciting thing that could ever have happened to me. We had been investigating a group of individuals with links to the Italian mafia for some time. Historical police intelligence information gathered from various places including Montreal, England, Venezuela, Switzerland, and Italy, confirmed that this group was very active in the international drug importation business. Newer intelligence revealed that they had taken up primary residency in Canada, practically at our back door. In fact, the kingpin of this illegal organization was actually living in Toronto. My team worked with the RCMP Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit and authorities in the United States, Italy, and South America. Our collective goal was to bring this group's illegal drug importation activities to an end. We were hot on their trail. Things heated up when the Toronto kingpin was tried and convicted in absentia of international drug trafficking by the Italian judicial authorities. On our end, we needed to prove that the Toronto kingpin's extravagant Canadian lifestyle had been derived from his criminal activities, that his multiple mansions, luxury cars, frequent and expensive vacations, opulent jewelry, and all other publicly displayed indications of wealth were proceeds of crime. To prove our case, we needed the same hard evidence that had convinced the Italian judicial authorities of the Toronto kingpin's criminality. As a result, my policing journey took a surreal turn. I found myself booking a flight to Italy. I'd never visited the land of my cultural heritage before, so I was understandably excited. Being first-generation Canadian, I had often heard stories from my parents about my Italian roots in Perugia, just north of Rome, but never dreamed that I would get to go to Italy. I was to travel with a member of the Canadian Federal Crown Council and another member from the Proceeds of Crime Unit, who was fluent in Italian. Trips overseas such as this were a fairly rare occurrence, so there was a lot of buzz generated in the office. When people realized that the three of us traveling to Italy all happened to be women, we became the butt of a number of shoe-shopping expedition jokes. I was determined to turn such comments on their heads, but little did I know the significance our journey was really going to take. With my first son only 10 months old, and best wishes from my supportive husband, I packed my bags for a trip I thought would only last a few days. The 10-hour flight to Rome was long, but our greeting by the RCMP liaison officer was most welcoming. He met us at the airport and took us to our hotel in the center of the city. Rome was beyond my wildest dreams. It was such a beautiful city, full of rich history, sunshine, ancient buildings, and people in a hurry. Traffic was crazy. There did not appear to be any designated lanes. Instead, cars squeezed and merged wherever they could, while Vespas weaved in and out of traffic and often up onto the sidewalk. "Hey," I pointed out the window. "They are going through a red light." I was told that traffic lights were more of a suggestion rather than a rule. I was very happy to let someone else do the driving. After arriving gratefully in one piece at our hotel, we settled in for the night. In the morning, we had an important meeting with the Italian police, or carabinieri. In the morning, we met with a member of the carabinieri who listened very intently as we briefed him on our case and explained what we were looking for and needed from the Italian courts. He told us that we should speak with his supervisor. The next morning, we met with the supervisor. He listened very intently as we briefed him on our case and explained what we were looking for and needed from the Italian courts. He told us that we should speak with the judicial magistrate for mafia investigations in Rome. The third morning, we set out to meet with the judicial magistrate. This time, however, we were escorted in a police motorcade with sirens blaring as we roared through the streets of Rome. We traveled at a very high rate of speed towards the courthouse, weaving through heavy traffic, flying down narrow cobblestone streets, and not stopping for any reason. My colleagues and I were squeezed into the back seat of a tiny European police car. Between the noise of the sirens and the bouncing of the vehicle, I started to feel a little queasy. I opened the window only to take in a lungful of thick exhaust fumes from a passing bus. I quickly rolled up the window and just held on. My companions and I could only laugh amongst ourselves at the attention we were getting from bystanders and motorists. Goodness knows what they must have been thinking. We met with the lead magistrate for mafia investigations, only to have to schedule yet another meeting. But this time we would be meeting with the highest-ranking officer in the carabinieri, the commander. The meeting with the commander took place at a local restaurant, which, to our surprise, had been closed to the public to allow for our exclusive use. The commander arrived with his entourage, while personnel were left outside to guard the cars. Security was extremely tight. At the time, the carabinieri had been the target of violence perpetrated by the mafia. As we learned, carabinieri officers had been targeted and violently killed in several bomb attacks over the course of the past 9 years. The violence perpetrated by the mafia extended beyond the carabinieri and had international implications. The commander filled us in on some of the history. In May 1992, the mafia assassinated the legendary prosecutor Judge Falcone with a motorway bomb in Palermo, Sicily. Judge Falcone's wife and 3 bodyguards were also killed in the blast. Less than 2 months later, Judge Falcone's friend and colleague, Judge Borsellino, was also killed in Palermo when a car bomb went off outside his mother's home. These 2 incidents forever changed how many in Italy viewed the mafia, and the increased police scrutiny resulting from the murders caused many members of the mafia to flee the country and seek refuge in other parts of the world. Canada was one of their chosen destinations. The commander was willing to help us with our investigation in Canada, as he recognized it could help bring an end to some of the violence in his own community in Italy. He agreed to make arrangements for us to pick up the evidence we required from the Palermo courts. We'd be making a side trip to Sicily. Having cleared up the formalities, the conversation shifted, and the commander began asking us about how we as women had come to serve as police officers. He explained that there were no women in the Carabinieri, primarily due to lack of proper facilities and training programs. The commander asked us how the RCMP trained its women. We assured him that in the RCMP, women trained with men and worked in the same facilities without any problems. The commander seemed surprised and wanted to know if we were given 5 days off per month due to our woman's cycle. We assured him that women worked regardless of when they were on their cycle, performing the very same duties as men. The commander asked how long we had served in the RCMP. I told him that I had 15 years on the job, but that the RCMP had actually hired their first women in 1974. The commander was pleasantly surprised to hear this. "It appears women are very capable investigators," he said. The next day, our group of 3 flew to Palermo. Our short flight was uneventful until we approached the small island and were greeted by ominous-looking black clouds. The plane began to bounce around in the turbulence, and the pilot announced that he would try to land at the airport. As we circled, we came very low to the sea. The wing of the plane appeared to be nearly touching the water. The runway jutted out from high cliffs. If the pilot did not make the runway, I was sure we'd have the sea or cliffs to greet us. My colleague did not want to look out the window and asked me to tell her when we were on the runway. We swayed from side to side as we came in for the landing. We were just about to touch down when all of a sudden the plane began to gain altitude. The pilot advised us that he was going to try again. I must say I was not too keen on that because the storm was getting worse. The plane circled several times before the pilot advised us that he had decided to land at the Catania airport. Thank goodness. It was not until we were safe on the ground that we learned what we had tried to land in on the other side of the island. It turned out that the storm was the worst hurricane to hit Palermo in 50 years. We spent several hours at the crowded Catania airport, waiting for the storm to pass before boarding the same plane and returning to our intended destination. Thankfully, the storm had ended, but we arrived in Palermo to find uprooted palm trees, overturned cars, and debris all over the place. We were greeted by a police captain who drove us to our hotel. On the way, he pointed out the crater at the side of the road which still remained from the murder of Judge Falcone. At our hotel, the police captain introduced us to the security detail that would remain outside our hotel all day and night. We were quite astounded with the security. Before departing, the captain announced he would pick us up in the morning and take us to meet his commander. The next morning was gloriously beautiful when, as promised, the police captain arrived at our hotel. But despite the sunshine, the atmosphere in the vehicle turned ominous when the police captain stopped the car at a roadside monument that had been erected for Judge Falcone and his wife near their former home. Fresh flowers were laid at its base, as if the murders had happened only yesterday. It was obviously quite a poignant incident that was still fresh in the minds of local citizens. To this day, the many mafia families instigate a lot of violence amongst each other for control of illegal activities, the police captain told us. They also target the police and judicial officials. Turning from the monument, the police captain scanned the horizon. The police always have to be vigilant about being followed. We are careful not to lead enemies to our families. We followed the police captain to our waiting vehicle, sobered by the realization of just how dangerous it was to be a police officer or judicial official in Italy. When we walked into the headquarters of the Palermo-based Carabinieri police, a number of male officers came out of their offices to watch us pass by. The police captain explained that word of the visiting women police officers from Canada had quickly spread through their headquarters. They have never seen women police officers before, so you are quite unique, he said. The police captain introduced us to his commander, who met us briefly before personally escorting us to the Palermo courthouse. We traveled the streets of Palermo in his motorcade, police sirens blaring all the way to the courthouse. The courthouse was like an armed camp. The perimeter was protected by barbed wire-topped fencing and snipers. Guards at the front gate used mirrors to inspect the undercarriages of each motorcade vehicle. Even the commander himself handed over identification and paperwork for scrutiny. Once inside the perimeter, we exited the vehicles and were escorted through a series of metal detectors. We learned that all court officials, lawyers, magistrates, and even judges underwent the same process every day they came to work. The murders of Judges Falcone and Borsellino had left an everlasting legacy. We were escorted to an office where a court clerk handed us an official-looking package bearing all the court seals and notarizations needed to ensure admissibility to court proceedings in Canada. And, just like that, we had what we needed. After all we'd been through, it seemed almost too easy. We'd expected that we'd need to spend countless hours searching on our own through court records for the documents we needed. We pored through the documents and confirmed everything was there, expressing our gratitude to the commander and court officials for supporting our investigation. We 3 ladies returned to Canada a few days later, never to forget the courage, professionalism, and hospitality of the Carabinieri. The evidence we obtained in Italy was integral to the successful prosecution of several mafia leaders in Canada, including our very own Toronto kingpin. And we did it all the while resisting our natural instinct to shop for shoes. So much for stereotypes. When I started my career during the early 80s in rural Manitoba, I never imagined that I would someday have the opportunity to represent the RCMP, and women police officers in general, in the very country my family had originated from. But what really stands out was the day I picked up a long-distance phone call from that RCMP liaison officer who had met us in Rome. "You're never going to believe this," he said. "The Carabinieri has announced in the Italian paper today that they've hired their first women police officers." Emergency Response Team, Sergeant Valerie Brooks. I could hear their footsteps on the other side of the truck as they unloaded the bags of fertilizer and put them in the storage unit. We were in tight. This was happening now. This was the Toronto 18 investigation. 1 million man-hours, not to mention millions of dollars, had been spent. Multiple policing and intelligence agencies were involved. The investigation into the 18 Canadians who had been planning a domestic terror event had been thorough. Those sacks of fertilizer were ammonium nitrate, a compound that can be used as an explosive. Those guys were suspected of being terrorists with the intention of causing harm to Canadians. Most criminals regret earning the attention of the RCMP Emergency Response Team, ERT. That day, I was the head of the stack, the lead assaulter, the woman, who would come face to face with those criminals and bring their world crashing down on them. Amidst the intense focus and adrenaline coursing through my veins, there was time for a small grin under my helmet and balaclava. I gripped my MP5 assault rifle and dug my boot into the pavement for traction. I'd earned my way here. I could hear my ERT mates crashing through the front door. It was go time. The Emergency Response Team is an elite team of specially trained police officers who are highly skilled in the job of entering and clearing areas that are deemed too dangerous for the everyday police officer. There are some specializations within ERT, like sniper or marine operator, but we are all assaulters, trained to take and keep the upper hand in potentially violent policing situations. I had known that I wanted to get into the ERT program in 1996 when I was an applicant waiting to get into the force. During one of several ride-alongs with various members at my local detachment, I had had the opportunity to speak extensively with an ERT member. I was taken by his stories of the calls, the nature of the work, the training and the skill set required. I remember it like it was yesterday, because it was a life turning point. I said that I wanted to be ERT, and he responded by flatly telling me that women could not do the job of ERT. He was not overly arrogant or trying to be mean. It was a long-held perception that women could not handle the physical requirements of being on ERT, and no woman had ever been on the team. He told me that unless I could pick up a 200-pound man and carry him 25 yards, I would not pass the ERT course, as this was a requirement. Challenge accepted. This discussion served as a catalyst. I was also drawn to the ERT program because of the various skill sets required to join the team. It required proficiency with weapons, an ability to repel, and a high level of fitness combined with a degree of athleticism. Having grown up playing all sorts of team sports, including varsity basketball, I knew that I had the athletic ability, and I enjoyed team environments and the camaraderie associated with team activities. The fact that this was an elite, specialized team within the RCMP, and one in which no other female had ever been a part of in an operational capacity, made me want it even more. Fast forward the story to the spring of 2002. I'd spent 2 years of general duty policing in British Columbia and 3 years in federal policing in Ontario. There was an internal posting calling for interested members to try out for ERT. Doubt crept in right away. Did I want to put myself out there? Would I be accepted by the ERT members in Ontario? What would the reactions be nationally? I questioned if I was physically ready. The tryout was in just a few weeks. My supervisor was on ERT in Ontario, and my husband was both ERT and part of the Special Emergency Response Team, CERT, which was a tactical counter-terrorism team. These men supported me in my quest to become an ERT member. I never thought that it would take nerve to send an email, but I mustered the courage to start on this path. I emailed my intention to try out. From that point on, I was fully committed. I stepped up my training regimen and really began to focus on preparing for the ERT physical standards. I would need to successfully meet these on the morning of the selection course, or I would be given no further consideration. The National ERT Physical Standards consisted of 1.5 miles in 11 minutes or less, 40 continuous push-ups, 40 sit-ups in a minute, 5 pull-ups, a single 145-pound bench press. These tasks had to be done with little rest in between. Think it is easy? Try it. If you can do it with no problem, join the RCMP. We're hiring. And sign up for ERT. In fact, everyone struggles with the physical standard in some way. If you can bench a truck, you probably aren't a sprinter, and that run will burn. For me, it was the bench press. I was 135 pounds at the time, so I had to bench press over my body weight. The selection course is not just about finding individuals who can pass the physical standards. It is largely about identifying suitable potential candidates for the ERT program as a whole. That is, identifying those with the aptitude to master the various specialized skill sets, combined with the appropriate interpersonal skills to flourish in a team environment. The path to ERT is as follows. You show your interest and get the support of your supervisors. From there, you get called to the Ontario selection, which starts with the physical standards test listed above. But passing that is just the start. If you pass Ontario selection, you are brought on as a striker. Sort of